For more insight now on what this means going forward, we're joined by former Obama State Department official David Tafuri. David, thank you so much for your time. First of all, the president finally addressing this today, for the first time to the public. What do you think was the most significant piece of info from what he had to say?
A couple things. I mean, first of all, the most important was that now he does not believe that the three objects taken down after the Chinese spy balloon were in any way adversarial or threatening to the United States. And that was an important and interesting development. I think he laid out the changes that need to be made in terms of how the U.S. is going to approach this. And frankly, he didn't say this, but I think what he's basically suggesting is this is a new area for the U.S. Because they've opened up the radar, they're now detecting more of these objects, and there need to be some protocols put in place for how to deal with them. And perhaps they went too far in terms of taking down these three objects, but I think there needs to be an interagency study done in order to determine what types of objects are a threat and which are not, and then what to do about it. And that's what the president is suggesting the administration is going to do.
Well, here's the thing that really stands out to me, David. So this balloon was flying across the country. They knew immediately that it belonged to China. They told us that before they shot it down as it proceeded to cross over the rest of the U.S. before they finally shot it down over the ocean. They have shot down three objects. They have, recovered the debris from these objects, but cannot yet definitively tell us who those objects or what they belong to, what they are. Who are they? Research? Are they private companies? Why is that? If they could tell us before they shot down the Chinese balloon, but these have been shot down and they can't tell us who they belong to.
Well, the Chinese balloon was much larger, and it was something that the U.S. had been tracking before it got over the continental United States. So it had been already in the sights of the U.S. and of our intelligence and our military. So that's why it's a bit different than these other three objects, which were a lot smaller and may not have been picked up on radar until they changed the radar so that it was more sensitive.
Well, so of course there is a lot the president didn't tell us. How much of this do you think the administration is keeping close to the vest for some obvious security reasons?
I take what the president is saying as being candid and genuine. There may be some aspects of things that are classified that he can't talk about, but I think he's being honest when he says we don't really know what these other items were. It makes sense because if you look at the research and look at the facts, apparently there are balloons that are put up in the air, weather balloons and others, hundreds and maybe even thousands are put up into our skies. And so it's certainly possible that these were friendly balloons or not adversarial, but because we haven't been able to locate them and collect them and study them yet, we don't really know what they are. I would hope that there's another way to do this. We don't have to shoot them down, but maybe there's a possibility to kind of capture them with a C-130, especially if they're smaller. You could pull them into the airplane so that we don't have to spend so much time and resources in finding them in the future.
And just really quickly, I mean, do the guidelines that he laid out make sense as far as how to handle these type of objects as we move forward?
They do. I mean, the devil is in the details. We don't know exactly what the interagency process that he referred to is going to come up with, and what the protocols will be. And he said that we're not going to probably have access to all of those protocols because he doesn't want to send a signal to countries like China as to what they need to do in order to avoid being shot down. But the basic general protocols that he set forth make a lot of sense to me. And it's clear that the administration needs to do more studying on this subject. And I expect that they'll come up with an intricate, complex, thorough plan for dealing with this in the future.
All right. David Tafuri, thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.